The program.
Hello, Peter. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Now, you have a really interesting background as an actor yourself, Peter, in Cop Shop and Angel Baby and Evil Angels and a number of other film and television productions.
Yeah.
How did it all, first of all, how did you get into acting and how did it move then into being an acting coach?
Yeah, wow. We're talking a long time. 1977, I think, was my first professional gig on Cop Shop, and I guess that's kind of when it all began. So I did back then television. I wasn't in a regular series, but I just did quite a bit of TV. But I guess where it really began was in 1982 with a feature film that my brother wrote, which of course I know you know, Jan Sadi is a writer.
Yes.
And that was in that film Moving Out where it kind of all began and it started, and probably that's the seeds of my coaching or acting teaching began, because on that film, as well as being one of the actors, one of the characters in the film, one of the actors, I was also employed as acting coach. And Michael Pattinson, who directed the film at the time, and who's still directing, he asked me if I would like to hop on board and assist with the young actors, one of them being Vince Colosimo at the time, who was, I think, 15 years old. So I guess that was the first seed planted in terms of acting coaching, even though I didn't plan at that point. I never really started seriously teaching. And we're talking 82. I probably really started teaching about 20 years ago, pretty much full-time, almost full-time, even though I still act now and again. But yeah, no, it's, I guess it was, the seeds were planted back then in Moving Out days, and of course things went on from there, yeah. And then I ended up going overseas to study, and now I'm looking back and it's 30 years ago, and I'm going, oh my God, where did all this...
Time flies. Yeah. Well, let's talk about when you were in LA at the Lee Strasberg School of Acting, a studio. What is it that you're taught about acting? What is it that's so pervasive about his work?
Yeah, look, it's the big question, because there are so many schools and approaches to acting and what acting is, and I think, I really do very strongly believe that it's very misunderstood in terms of what it is that actors do. And back then, and it's a long time ago, I studied at the Lee Strasberg Theatre Institute, and there was a particular approach to acting called, as we've all heard by now, the method, the so-called method.
Yes.
And I don't like to talk about that too much because everyone has a different take on what the method is. What I can say is that it was a great time of learning, and I was younger, and it was like being a star, and there's some wonderful teachers there. And they taught me beyond the technique, a particular technique of the method, what they taught me. What they really taught me was a respect for acting, and that there is a craft. And the best actors, you don't see the craft, you don't see the wheels turning. And I think that's why there was a famous acting teacher by the name of Uta Hagen who wrote a book many years ago called Respect for Acting. And the title of the book says it all, because I think... over the many years, I think there is a lack of respect for acting, unless you're an actor or you're a director and you kind of know, because the best actors make it look easy. Yeah, to me, the fundamental, often people ask me, look, in one word, what's the most important thing in acting? And I go 30 years, one word, and I thought, yeah, that's easy, and that's listening and learning how to listen.
And I noticed that quoted is David Mamet's observation about no such thing as character or character development, only action and character's reaction.
Yeah, okay. Of course there's such a thing as character. If you look at some of the work I've done, you better believe there's of course there's a character up there on the screen, but I think it's more to do with the approach and the way, as an actor, you look at character. And Mamet's take is that basically there's no such thing as character. There's only the actor in action. And so for instance, when I'm teaching acting, I'm up there in front of the class, and I'm not playing teacher or the teacher. What I'm doing is trying to impart knowledge or information, and in my relationship to my students, and with my wanting and to impart certain knowledge out of that action to teach. The character of teacher is born. It's a danger to go in and play the teacher or play the bad guy or play... It's very easy to fall into a certain kind of a caricature. It's very much the actor being involved with his fellow actor in action, and it's in that interaction and the relationship that the character of the teacher is born. So, of course, there's character, but as rightly so, as you mentioned, David Mamet in his wonderful book, actors often ask, what's a good book on acting? And I said, look, there's a lot of good books out there, but the first one for me, which is Bible, which I first came in touch with about 10 years ago, was True and False. And the quote that you just mentioned, that's from that book. So yes, of course, there's character, and that's what ends up on the screen. But you, as an actor, you have to be careful that you don't play the character, the bad guy, the good guy. And it's really about the approach and how you approach something. So yeah, when you say this, when I first read that, and I said, no such thing as character. And of course, as you get into the book and you understand what he's actually saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's take this one step further. What do you have to beat out of or get rid of from an actor or actress in terms of how they perform so that they perform appropriately? Yep.
Yeah, good question. I think, one of the things, I always use the analogy of an artist, a painter versus a sculptor. A painter has a blank canvas, and you add paint, and you by adding more stuff, more paint, more oils, whatever, eventually you end up with an image or whatever that is. A sculptor, through the process of eliminating pieces of whatever he's working in marble, eventually by eliminating what's not required, you end up with so those two different approaches. And acting and actors, basically, it really becomes about eliminating blocks that get in the way of impulses. Allow yourself to react in a way that is impulsive. And so we work a lot with impulses. And a lot of actors students come, and through conditioning, parents, teachers, different things, we tend to are not aware of what's actually going on, and we tend to suppress and not express ourselves due to blocks that have come about through, having to protect it. Within the real world, you protect yourself, and you have to, but on the stage, an actor has to kind of put all that aside and be as a child. So it's very much about an unblocking through exercises, through physical things that we do, and it's really about eradicating the head and thinking. Thinking gets in the way, believe it or not. And when an actor's purely in action and involved and reacting, there's actually no thinking going on, and that's where presence happens. So is this all technical?
No, it's great, because it sounds like a really thorough psychological process where you're sort of teaching someone to unblock their approach to things and to be much more naturalistic and more reactive to situations. Yes. Two-parter. Is it a long process? And secondly, does it sometimes not work?
In terms of working with actors?
Yes.
In terms of it's when I say it's a long process. I've taught a long time, and often when actors are ready to go, I basically say you need to leave the safety of the school. I don't hang on to actors. You have to move on. I think behind that question also is maybe, can everyone learn to act?
Yeah.
Is it something that, or some people, I think you have to have something there, Peter. I think there needs to be some kind of a seed planted deep, which may be asleep, which may be dormant, but a good teacher comes along and somehow awakens what you already possess, but maybe it did not know that you possessed. I think some actors and all the students who have taught over many, many years, I think everybody, can they learn to act? No. I think you have to have something there to start with. And there are some actors who just, acting comes difficult for them. But, with perseverance and often they somehow break through a barrier. It's always about breaking through barriers. So I'm always amazed. Sometimes I'll see an actor for quite a while and I think, oh my God, I need to tell this person something there. Maybe they should give it away. And then one week something will happen in a class and suddenly something opens up and you see something and you go, oh my God, I was wrong. And they have this breakthrough. But it very much is a process, Peter. I very much believe in process.
Yep. Absolutely. So can you give an example that we can see out there in film and television of, you've mentioned De Niro and so on, but an example of a good acting performance?
Oh, wow. So many images in my head. One that comes, actually I was just talking to a student the other night, So I'll mention that one. And there was the movie True Romance.
Yes.
Yeah, with Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper.
Yep.
The famous scene, the wonderful scene where where Dennis Hopper's character gets blown away by Christopher Walken leading up. You know the scene I'm talking about?
Yes.
To me, that's a wonderful example of incredible acting. And what about it? That was scripted, that scene. I think one or two lines might have been improvised, but from what I've read, it was all scripted. And when you watch that, it sounds improvised. There's a spontaneity to it. There's very much what I call in between the lines acting, which Michael Caine termed that phrase after. He said good film actors, Michael Caine said good film actors act between the lines.
Mm.
And you see that in this particular clip on True Romance, and it's and you just see two wonderful, experienced actors, and it's like you just get so taken away, and you must remember that it's on the page, and yet they somehow get it off the page, and that's the real challenge for the actor, to get it from the, as I've often said, get it from the page to the stage. And purely understanding what the scene is about, purely understanding what these characters are about, doesn't necessarily enable an actor to actually do it. Because understanding is of the brain, the mind, and you need to, as an actor, get to know in your gut, in your belly, what this is. And somehow, we have to get it from our brain to our stomach, so to speak. And so when you watch these two very visceral kind of physical performances, you just get totally carried away. You don't even see a scene. You just get so involved that, often I forget I'm watching a movie. So it's to do with qualities of spontaneity, acting between the lines, listening. A lot of acting happens when you cut to a lot of directors, good directors, often will cut to the actor listening, and then if the actor's good, as these guys are, you watch the way they listen, and they say so much in their behaviour. Often they say much more in terms of what's going on in their behaviour, more than even when they're speaking. And so this clip is a wonderful example of great writing, acting, of course, directing. There's so many facets going into filmmaking, and a lot of times the acting gets overlooked because, as I said earlier, the best actors, you just don't see it happening, and it's so hard. Even Marlon Brando, many years ago, he said that the hardest thing to do as an actor on film is to be truthful and simple. We all go for the big emotions, right? But to be truthful and simple is the hardest thing, because we all want to emote and feel. But all the emotion, which I'm Italian, I love emotion, but all that emotion is always built on the simplicity of totally being present and connected to your fellow actor. And so when you see these two guys, Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper, there's this real connectedness that they have, and you don't see the acting, and it's one of my favourite clips. Yeah. So.
Okay.
To me, that's what good films are about. It's about seeing somehow a slice of life up there on the screen, and being able to somehow maybe see yourself in that character. And it's always about capturing the humanity of the prostitute, the humanity of the judge, the humanity, and the way you do that, because it's not on the page. The way you do that, Peter, is by allowing the character to penetrate you, meaning that it's through your humanity, the actor's sensibilities, the actor's ability to empathize. And actors have a high degree of sensibility and sensitivity, and therefore through revealing and taking their social mask off, we are able to see the actor's humanity. And it's by revealing the actor's humanity that we're able to discover and feel the character's humanity. You can't leave yourself out of that process.
Yep. All great, all well explained. So, Peter, great talking to you, and I'll just finish off by asking you, recently, any films or television shows you've seen where the acting has been exemplary?
First thing that comes to mind, there you go, is Breaking Bad.
Ah.
I just love everything about that.
Yep.
The writing is, it's incredible, and it makes it so much easier for actors when they're writing, when it's on the page, because a lot of times it's not on the page, and actors have to somehow work really hard. But Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston, some of those characters, not just Bryan Cranston, I'm amazed at all the supporting actors, how good they are. So to me, that's one of my favourites. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great recommendation. We've been talking to Peter Sardi and talking all about acting and the qualities of being a good actor. Peter, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And thank you for having me, Peter.
My pleasure.
Okay,
Peter Sardi,
bye-bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.